All right, well, good morning, everybody. Thank you all for coming out. This is a very exciting day and a day that's been a lot of work in the making. We're excited to announce the opening of Rhode Island's ABLE program, which allows Rhode Islanders living with disabilities to save for disability-related expenses in a tax-efficient manner without jeopardizing their access to federal benefits. Now, living with or raising a child with a disability can be costly, and until now, seeking assistance from federal programs like Social Security has meant that individuals were not able to save their own money. And this is something that is personal to me. It's something that I've learned about actually through my girlfriend's younger brother. His name is Peter. He lives out in Pittsburgh, where they're from. Peter has Down syndrome, and I have gotten to know him over the last several years and watched him grow from a teenager to now in his mid-20s. And there's a few things that you realize. The first is, when kids hit that age where they are out of the school system, a whole lot of services that were available through the school system disappear, and it's very costly and very expensive for families to provide that level of service and that level of care, whether it's counseling or therapy or even housing and health care and food and all of these things that are there to some extent at a young age through the school system just evaporate, and it's a huge financial challenge for families to figure out how to continue those services as these young people transition into adulthood. Now, Peter, after he got out of high school, he got a job, and he was very excited that he was, a working man. And he got a job first at a library, stacking books, and then later as a custodian. And it is a real challenge. You want all people, all Rhode Islanders, all Americans who, regardless of their disability status, to be able to have productive lives and to go to work and be able to give back. But there is that challenge that if you amass more than a couple $1,000s in assets at any one time, those federal benefits shut off. And it can happen very quickly, and it leaves many young people who have a disability in this perpetual state of vulnerability, because you aren't able to save a lot without jeopardizing your benefits, and you don't know what emergency could be laying around the corner that could create a big financial burden. So the ABLE program is great in a couple of ways. The ABLE program, these are accounts where families and individuals with disabilities can save money. They can save up to $14,000 a year in ABLE accounts, and up to $100,000 of savings in ABLE accounts will not impact those federal benefits like Social Security. So you could save up to $100,000 without having a freeze in those federal benefits. Also, it's a tax-efficient way to save. So you can invest it in stocks and bonds aggressively, conservatively, and then when it comes time to spend that money on qualified expenses like healthcare, counseling, housing, there's no federal capital gains tax on those investment earnings. So it's a great way to save. There's tax benefits. There's benefits in terms of not losing those important federal benefits while you're saving. This is a really, really good program and a really exciting day. Now, enrollment is open. Rhode Islanders can go to ri.savewithable.com to sign up or open an account. And what's there today is just the beginning. So right now, available on this website are these long-term savings plans where you can invest in stocks and bonds and so on. Later this spring, we're going to be launching transaction-able accounts that are going to have debit cards. They're going to be FDIC-insured bank accounts that people can use for those short-term transactions on qualified expenses. And we'll continue to innovate and continue to develop this program over time. Now, none of this would have been possible if it weren't for the strong support of the Rhode Island General Assembly. The ABLE Act in Rhode Island passed in 2015. unanimously in both the Senate and the House. The bill sponsors, Senator Adam Satchel of West Warwick and Representative Nardolillo from Coventry, were great to work with. They were not able to make it here today because they're both working at their day jobs, but they send their regards and their enthusiasm for the fact that the program is launching. But this wouldn't have happened without strong legislative leadership. And I now want to introduce someone who's been a great partner, someone who I didn't know very well when I first started this job 2 years ago. The Senate President and I didn't know each other very well, even when this bill passed 2 years ago. But as I've gotten to know her, I have been so impressed. She is a real champion for Rhode Islanders with disabilities, for Rhode Islanders who, are seeking access to health care and seeking access to counseling and to those important benefits that we need in order to have a productive and equitable society. She's a champion, she's a fighter, she's someone who cares, and it's my pleasure now to introduce our Senate President Teresa Paiva Weed.
Thank you for those kind words, and I do want to again recognize Senator Satchel and Rep. Nardolillo. But I couldn't resist the opportunity when the Treasurer invited me for the launch of this program because it's something that I believe in so much. As the Treasurer said, we've all had personal experiences with folks who have had to figure out ways to find money for technological advances that perhaps maybe even experimental in nature's boards, things that aren't covered, as well as the focus we've had in the past few years, and no one's been a greater champion than our Secretary, Elizabeth Roberts, thank you, Elizabeth, on fulfilling the obligations of the consent decree, but the challenges that we face with employment supports and job training to have these type of funds available to supplement what is available or entitlements by law could be critical to a better job for a developmentally disabled person, or one of the issues I run into, them being able to work more hours, because so many of the folks that I've talked to want to work more hours than they currently are, but because they don't have a job coach available for that extra day during the week, they can't do it. Many families of people with disabilities face financial hardships when the children become adults. When high school ends, families of people with disabilities often find a challenge in meeting their children's needs. In addition to the things I've mentioned, medical needs and routine services can be cost prohibitive. But this ABLE program, and I'm going to mention, I don't know if I heard you say it, Treasurer, I love what it means, achieving a better life experience. That is such a terrific name for this savings account because it is a way that we can responsibly ensure a better life, parents in particular, for their children without jeopardizing opportunities for assistance in the future. So I think it's something we agree as a society we should do, and certainly it was great that we were able to pass the bill. But I want to recognize the Treasurer, Census College Savings, and also Joe Furr and the members of the Treasurer's Office for the implementation. I will admit, as a member of the General Assembly, that that we have an idea and we work together with people like the General Treasurer and the Secretary to pass a law, but oftentimes the real challenge comes in the implementation. And I know in this specific instance, while everybody agreed on where we were going, a lot of work went into the implementation. So I want to thank the Treasurer for his commitment to the program and for ensuring that, in fact, this is not just a law in the books, but a real program that will help real people each and every day. So thank you, and thanks for inviting me to be here.
So our partner in getting this program up and running has been the Executive Office of Health and Human Services. Now, this is an office that interacts with the disabled community hundreds of times a week, if not hundreds of times a day. They've been a critical partner in helping us develop this program, getting it up and running, and now will be an important partner in helping us get the word out. And I have to say, to the members of the media and the public who are here today, we need your help in getting the word out so that people know about this. That's the next part of the mission, is to make sure that people know that this is available and that they take advantage of it. For decades now, Secretary Elizabeth Roberts has been a smart, effective, compassionate champion for Rhode Islanders in need. She's been fantastic to work with on this project, as has her staff. I want to thank her for that, and I want to invite her up to say a few words. Secretary.
Thank you, Treasurer, and good morning, and Madam President. So I want to echo something that the President just said, which is about implementation. And as a recovering legislator, I know how often that I had what I thought was a great idea, and often was a great idea, and can be so tough sometimes to keep that idea moving and make it a reality. And I really want to recognize the Treasurer and his staff, as well as Deb George, who I see here, and Acting Director Becky Boss from BHDDH and her staff, Adam Brusso. It's really the staffs that are going to make this work. And Joseph, I want to thank you. And I want to thank the families and individuals in the community, because it is your lives and your partnership that's going to make this possible, and that we're going to work together to improve, and you're going to help us get the word out. But I really want to thank Senator Satchel and Representative Nardolillo. Both of them came to see us a couple of years ago to say, look, we need this to really happen, not just to pass something and maybe eventually it'll work. And we have made it happen, and I want to thank everybody involved. I want to thank the advisory group. Advisory groups are a big part of how that coordination happens and how we actually make it work over the long term. And there are so many people who have collaborated, both inside government with the community, to really make it happen and to make it work well. It was great to be at the advisory group a couple of weeks ago, where a mom kind of stood up a few times and said, look, here's something you need to think about that hasn't worked. Here's something we need to do better, because we've been using another state's program here in Rhode Island. We need to make sure this happens. We made a really smart choice in joining the National ABLE Alliance, so that we as a tiny state get to benefit from that kind of influence of a large group of states, and get to work with the census on having this be. I'm a mom who used college savings accounts for my kids' college. I know how valuable these kinds of programs are to help families plan. They give you a structure to work with. And it's been said so much, we want people to have full lives and to live in the community and work. And we often put barriers in their way. The ABLE account removes some of those barriers so that people can work, can benefit financially from that work, and then not be penalized by losing some of the crucial supports that keep them independent. It becomes a terrible catch-22 sometimes when we say to people, we want you out in the community, we want you working. Oh, but by the way, if you do that, you're going to lose these crucial supports that help you to be independent out in the community. The ABLE account does away with some of those really counterproductive obstacles that get in our way. So, in my new job, following my recovering politician, or in my recovery phase, and as Secretary of Health and Human Services, one of the most important things we do, and it's true, we interact hundreds of times a day. And Director Boss is here because, it is programs at BHDDH where we see hundreds, we serve thousands and thousands of Rhode Islanders, and we see them every day and interact every day. And we want to make sure they have access to high-quality services. That's a fundamental job that we have. But most of all, we want to expand opportunity for them. We want them to be able to live a full, complete life, just like every other Rhode Islander. And we want to make sure that government, in a good, common-sense way, helps make that happen. And that's just what the ABLE account does. So I'm really honored to be here. I want to recognize the Treasurer for taking this on early in his term and saying, maybe there's a relatively small group of Rhode Islanders that this serves, but it's a crucial group of Rhode Islanders. And he took that on and didn't let it go. So thank you so much. I'm proud to be here.
So I want to turn it over now to one of my other great sources of inspiration as we've gone through this process of setting up the Rhode Island's ABLE program. Joe Ferreira works in our office in the Rhode Island Treasury, Not on this program, necessarily. He is a member of our unclaimed property department. He helps process unclaimed property claims. But even though the ABLE program isn't necessarily in his formal job description, he has stepped up and made it his business to make sure that we get it right. Joe is someone who has a very inspiring life story, who worked very hard to get to where he is, working in our office, helping to reunite Rhode Islanders with their unclaimed property. He's been a very active member of the advisory group that has helped us as we've developed this program, and I wanted to invite Joe up to say a few words.
Let me just start by saying I have the greatest job in the world. I get paid and I'm finding your money. That's a win-win situation. I'm Joseph Ferreira. I have a 17-year-old beautiful daughter in which I've been blessed. And I also been blessed with cerebral palsy. If there was a condition I should be born with, this was made for me. I work for the treasurer. I've been there 15 years, and I'm not going anywhere. And I work in the ABLE Advisory Committee. I'm lucky. I can work every day. I get up, get dressed, and go to work. But there's a lot of people who are not so lucky, like me. They can't work. And, with the medical and Social Security, people with disabilities are living in poverty. Unfortunately, this is terrible to have the greatest nation in the world, and yet people live in poverty. ABLE is a very important tool for people with disabilities and their families. Expenses, they don't decrease, they increase every year. And people with disabilities who are living on a fixed income cannot keep their head above water. This is a great opportunity for somebody disabled, because now there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And I'm going to thank my boss, Seth, the magazine, and the General Assembly to pass this important law. Thank you all.
Another important partner that's been very influential for us as we've developed this program and made it work is Kevin Nerney. Kevin is the Associate Director with the Rhode Island Developmental Disabilities Council. He's been a great sounding board, a great resource, and I want to thank Kevin and invite him up to say a few words.
So I think one of the most important things that you just heard was from Joe talking about poverty and how the current system almost encourages it. And so that's one of the reasons why this is so important. $2,000, more or less, is the most people can have saved up. You could imagine if something big and important happened in your life, something broke that you need to get fixed, and if you didn't have that money on hand, how are you going to go about doing that? So these accounts are really important for the savings aspect. They allow people who are earning money to be able to put money away, maybe every month, maybe just a little bit, and have the dollars they need for important things in their lives. I have one friend who uses a wheelchair, and it's provided by Medicaid. It's a really nice one. It's electric. She said, well, I also need just the regular one that you roll and that folds up, because if my aunt comes and picks me up and I want to go see my family, she doesn't have the van that you can roll this really heavy thing into. And they said, no, you get one wheelchair. And so she didn't have the savings to be able to go out and just buy that second, really what we would consider a simple access to the community. And that's one of the little things that these accounts will be able to help people do. Another thing I've heard from a lot of parents, especially of younger children, as they're developing their 529 education programs, they may have a child with a disability and say, is it worth it for me to put money into something? The 529 education plans, they're very specific expenses that you can spend those on. With these ABLE accounts, if a child has a disability, the expenses are disability related, so they should be much broader. Parents can now start saving money for all their kids instead of just some of their kids. Employment, probably the biggest issue in Rhode Island right now, especially under the consent decree. These ABLE accounts will allow people who have previously been told, don't bother looking for work, because if you make so much money, if you put that money away, you're going to end up losing Social Security, potentially losing long-term care. This allows those people to seek, keep, and expand their employment. And that's one of the most important things that's happening in the state right now. There are other ways to get Medicaid buy-in, and they're all really complicated. And this one, I have to say, thank you to Accenture, seems really simple to operate, to open, to move money around. And I think that's going to be one of the most helpful pieces. But the single most important thing, I think, is the uniqueness of these accounts, and that the person who owns the account, the person with this disability owns the account. They have ownership and control over dollars equals power and independence, and that's really what this is all about. So I want to say thank you to Senator Satchel and Rep. Nardolillo. It takes a lot to shepherd these things through the General Assembly, particularly to to the Treasurer and his staff, particularly Amy Crane, who took this from the beginning and put a lot of legwork into it, and everybody for really supporting it and making it happen. I'm really excited, and I hope everyone else is too. Thank you.
Before we invite up our final speaker, just another quick story. So we did a soft launch of this program about a month ago with a handful of people just to test it out and work out the kinks, of which there were very few, I'm happy to say. But one of the early adopters that we tested it out with actually used it in a really interesting way that I think shows some of the possibilities of this account and the technology behind it. From what I'm told, this was an individual who was looking to buy a vehicle that was a handicapped, accessible, and usable van, and was looking to raise the money for it through a online GoFundMe campaign, and was able to set it up so that that campaign the money that everybody donated online went right into the ABLE account, which could then be used to be spent on the vehicle, which was a qualified expense under ABLE. So, that's something that I never would have thought of. And it just shows, once this takes off, I think there's all kinds of neat applications that people are going to come up with on their own. And it could be something that's really a community-building tool as well. I just want to give you a little bit of inside baseball. So one of the biggest challenges that we had in getting this up and running was the fact that Rhode Island is a small state. And when you're dealing with a relatively small population in a relatively small state, the question becomes, well, how do you launch this in a way that's affordable, where the fees aren't going to be really high for account holders? So we joined something called the National ABLE Alliance. This is about a dozen states that came together because there were other states that had passed ABLE laws that were having the same challenge that we were. And the dozen or so states, we all came together and we said, okay, we're going to work together to hire one common program manager to help get some economies of scale and spread the costs across all of the states. It was successful. We joined with the National ABLE Alliance. It includes actually some big states like Illinois and Pennsylvania and North Carolina, along with a handful of other smaller ones. And the Rhode Island ABLE account holders will be paying the same low fees as an account holder in one of those big states because we're part of this national consortium. That was a good and important step. And even better, it turns out when it came time for the National Alliance to choose who our common provider was going to be, all of the states together chose a company called Ascensus, which has a large office right here in Warwick, Rhode Island. So Rhode Island is not only going to benefit from the services and the expertise and the technology that Ascensus brings to the table, we're also going to get some jobs out of this. Jobs not only servicing Rhode Island ABLE account holders, but also account holders in these other states across the country. So it's a very welcome development. We're excited about it. And I want to call up our final speaker, somebody who we work with in our 529 college-bound program and now work with on Rhode Island's ABLE, the CEO of Ascensus, Jeff Halkins. Jeff.
So public speaking or death, you can guess which one I'm choosing. But it was a pleasure to be here, and as a lifelong Rhode Island resident, grew up in Riverside, went to East Providence High School, and have the opportunity to run a company that manages $85 billion in college savings, and we just passed the 4 million accounts to help Americans save for college. I'm really pleased to be here today and to talk about ABLE. This is another wonderful way for our company that has a mission to help people save for retirement, for college, now to help the disabled to save for many different ways, as well as for health savings accounts. We're a company of 1,600 strong. In our division, we have about 500 people. As part of the 529 program, we committed to open an office here in Rhode Island of 35 people. I'm proud to say we have 54 today. During our busy season, we'll swell to 70 to 75. So we're pretty excited about that. 2 years ago, when this legislation was happening, we basically said to all of our clients, we'll build the platform, we'll pay for it, we'll invest in it, we're in public sector contracting, we understand what needs to be done. So we were able to roll that out to 11 states as well. I can tell you that the Treasurer has been a tremendous resource for us. And the reason I say that is we could tell you, when you have 11 states, it's like the old Boston Red Sox, 25 cabs, 25 players. So you have a different state outlook. And Seth was tremendous in really coalescing and getting people together and understanding how to put things out and deliver. We were able to deliver Rhode Island and Alaska early for online functionality for ABLE. So we're thrilled about that. We're thrilled about continuing to build our base here in Rhode Island, and look forward very much to helping service the state of Rhode Island. And like I said, I'm thrilled as a native Rhode Islander. So thank you.
So in closing, I just want to recognize once again everybody who made this possible, not only the individuals you heard from, but also the great folks at Buddha at DDH, represented here by Rebecca Boss. I want to thank all of the folks in Secretary Roberts' office, and then I always try to make a point of recognizing my staff. Us elected officials are very good at getting up in front of the cameras and claiming lots of credit, but a lot of people behind the scenes worked very hard to make this happen. Starting with Amy Crane from our office, who came she's on maternity leave, but she wanted to be here today to come for this because she's been a part of it from the beginning. I want to recognize Kim Shockley, Dana Peterson-Fortuta, Tiffany Cashel, Kelly Rogers, B. Lanzi, Randy Rice, Patrick Marr, Evan England, all from my team. A lot of people, and Sharon Rose as well, a lot of people in our office put in a lot of time over the last 2 years, and we're going to continue to keep working to make this program a success in partnership with all of you. Now, once again, we move into the next phase, which is getting the word out. So to all of the folks who are here today, tell your friends, tell your family, and let's get some people signed up for ABLE. Thank you very much. We'll do some questions. Yep.
So you mentioned you can save up to $14,000. Then you mentioned you could save up to $100,000.
$14,000 a year.
A year. Okay.
And you can then save up to $100,000 before the Social Security benefit is frozen. So you can have $100,000 in your account at any one time before that happens.
And what will the fees be?
Jeff, I want to say we're starting out at about 30 basis
30
points.
basis points.
So 0.3%.
$40 account fee, and there's a fee if you use paper transactions.
Anyone else? All right. Well, we'll hang around if there are any other questions, but thank you very much again.